I would like to welcome Professor M.A. Thomas, sir. As Bipin sir was discussing, he is a teacher of teachers, and we are really lucky to have him for our COS PG training program. Welcome to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Balu. And good evening to all. So actually, this is a new area for me, online teaching. I have just taken few classes in AIMS for undergraduates. And actually, I take to class with the patients and my students in front of me, actually. That may be, but now in this situation, it may not be that possible. So I don't know how effective this class is going to be, because many things are missing. One is history taking. So most important part of clinical case discussion is the history taking. So we may be reaching our diagnosis sometimes 90% diagnosis from the history. And then comes the physical examination. That also missing in this type of teaching. We are giving you a clinical scenario or something, and you are expanding or you are with the physical findings what we are giving, you may be reaching the diagnosis. Anyway, at this situation, we can only do like that. Okay, I am going for the first case. So this is case 1, an 18-month-old female child. So any of the postgraduates can describe the inspection findings. Anybody, any coordinator there? Balu?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you give it to somebody to
yes.
From the picture, describe the inspection findings.
Okay, Anupam. Any volunteers? Dheeraj or Anupam? Can you start?
Yeah, simple case, very simple, straightforward. 1.5-year-old female child. Parents born with the deformity.
Sir, the child has bowing of both knees.
Yes.
Bowing of both legs with a slight equinus on the right side, ankle.
Yes. So since you have seen the equinus, is there a flexion at the knee joint?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Which side it is more?
More pronounced on the right side, sir.
Right side. Like that, you have to say every physical finding, since the only picture is there. Maybe not that. Anything you can make out? The length appears normal.
No, sir. There seems to be a shortening on the right side.
Right side. So you said the deformity is more on the right side and a shortening on the right side. Why the shortening?
Sir, should be due to the flexion deformity.
Flexion deformity as well as exaggerated deformity on the right side.
Right side. Yes, sir.
Okay. What all physical? Suppose this patient is in front of you. What all physical examination will you do? So just like imagine the patient is with you. So now you have seen the picture. So what all things you will look in this child? Suppose examination findings, inspection only. Then what all the other things are imaginary? What all palpations you will do?
Sir, we have to assess whether the deformity is correctable passively.
Okay. Then
the intermalleolar and intercondylar distances.
Okay, this is a varus deformity, isn't it?
Yes,
so which distance, intermalleolar or intercondylar?
Intercondylar distance.
Intercondylar distance, yes. Then anything else? Will you palpate the bones?
Yes, sir.
Which all bones?
Sir, it involves a knee joint, so we will palpate for the tibial as well as the femoral condyles.
Proximal tibia and distal femur you have to palpate, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And if you look carefully, is the left angle, or because of the lighting, is it more prominent appears? Just I am saying from the picture, is it more prominent or thickened when you are comparing the other side?
Yes, sir.
If it is so, is it significant?
Yes, sir. A significant finding.
What is in your mind? When you are saying it is significant, what is in your mind? Okay. Will you see the movements of the knee joint?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
How will it help you?
Sir, we should assess the range of movements.
Okay.
And see if there is any restriction.
Anything else more important when there is a deformity around knee joint?
Sir, we should assess for any instability.
No, that only you have said. Is it correctable or not?
Yes, sir.
When in varus deformity, there is a lateral thrust. That is more common, little more adult. But in this is a child, only 1.5 years. So when there is a deformity around knee joint, how do you know is the deformity is because of distal femur or proximal tibia? Any clinical test? Sorry. Yes. Anybody?
So we will flex the knee and see if the deformity is getting corrected or not.
Yes, you flex the knee joint and see whether the deformity is correcting now. Suppose the deformity is correcting. What is your inference?
Femoral distal femoral deformity.
It is a distal femoral. So usually in all such cases, you have to do a knee flexion and do know from where the deformity is arising. Sometimes most probably it may be both components may be there, both the tibial and the femoral components may be there. So Balu, give somebody for the possibilities. What are the possibilities or differential diagnosis?
Okay, Naomi, can you
give somebody some postgraduates?
Yeah.
Not Balu.
So, Naomi?
Sir,
you volunteering.
Okay. Rickets is a possibility in this case, sir.
Rickets is a possibility. Very good. Then, who is answering?
Anupam.
Okay. Any other possibility? 1.5 years.
Physiological, sir.
Physiological. So that is most common. Physiological tibia vara. But anything else?
Metaphyseal dysplasia.
Metaphyseal dysplasia, because we are seeing only the knee joint, no other joints you are seeing. So that is another possibility. Yes. Then
previous trauma and overgrowth of lateral.
Yes, this is only 1.5-year-old child trauma. Very unlikely. You can say for the completion purpose, you can say it as the DD. Yes.
Infantile Blount's disease. Blount's disease, infantile Blount's disease.
Infantile Blount's disease. So these are all possibilities you have to think of. So 1.5-year-old child, physiological tibia vara, there's a strong possibility maybe. But this physiological tibia vara disappear by which age?
2 years.
2 years. 2 years away.
2 years. By 2 years, this will disappear and goes to valgus deformity. And that may reach maximum by 4 years. And then it will decrease by 6 years to the normal valgus alignment. So that is usually what is normally happening. But the parents saying that after the child start, there was a little delay and after this deformity appears to be for them increasing. Okay. Balu, give it somebody else. How will you proceed to evaluate?
Okay. John C., can you volunteer?
No problem. Anybody can, because this is only a class.
Yeah. This is the best time, you can interact, practice answering. So feel free to.
So we can start with investigation, sir.
Yes. Who is volunteering?
Investigation.
Okay.
Okay. So Mohammed was answering. Yeah. Mohammed?
Yeah, okay. Routine blood investigation like calcium, phosphorus, ALP.
Okay. Why you want to do all these things? That is not routine. Serum calcium, serum phosphorus,
Okay.
alkaline phosphatase, isn't it?
Mm.
Yes. Anything else? Anything else? Any other?
Then renal function test and renal to rule out renal tubular acidosis and
Yes, you evaluate the renal function. That is the causes for rickets. So you evaluate. Then, so blood investigations usually routinely. You will not do a vitamin D. You have not said about the evaluation of the vitamin D level. Is it? Will you do it? Okay. Yes or no, Mohammed Sani? Yes, gone. Or mute.
Yes.
Will you do a vitamin D?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Any other investigation apart from blood?
Radiograph, sir.
Will you go for an X-rays?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Who is answering? Mohammed himself is answering.
John C. John C. Yeah, go ahead.
John C. So
We
what all
need to
X-ray?
take the X-rays of both the knees, sir,
Okay.
and preferably a long leg view also,
Weight bearing view, isn't it?
weight bearing view,
Okay. Then
and of the wrist, hand, and
why you want wrist? Why you want wrist? The pathology is the deformity is on the knee, and why you want wrist? Yes, you are right. You say the reason.
To see the flowing of the
See the
Yeah, somebody mentioned the flaring, right? Ankit.
flaring you can see on the tibia, proximal tibia, distal femur, you can see the flaring. So to see the number of carpal bones, how many carpal bones are ossified? Usually age plus 1 is the normal, 1 or 2. There may be some difference to see the any ossification delay. So then, and definitely at that time you can see the epiphyse also. Epiphyse and metaphyseal changes also there. Okay. Will you take an X-ray of the pelvis? Yes, these, if it's a generalized epiphyseal problem, you can get the changes in the, there may be a coxa vara in the epiphysis and all these things. And also in this suspected renal rickets, distal tibia usually more pronouncedly involved. So that also. So you can take an X-ray, both knees, including angle. You can take an X-ray of the pelvis and left wrist that usually you commonly take, left wrist. These are the X-rays usually you advise to find out what are the possibilities. So these are the X-rays. So somebody read the X-ray of the leg with knee with angle. These are all class. This is not an examination. Only we are here. You can just read.
Sir, in the X-ray of the both knees with the ankle joint, I'm able to see a splaying of the metaphysis.
Where, which joint you are saying?
Sir, the knee joint, sir.
Knee joint, yes. Distal femur. Distal femur.
At the proximal tibial side. And with the widening of the growth plate.
Yes, this cursor you can see.
Yes, sir. I'm able to see a spur sign.
Hello, this cursor I am pointing on the metaphyseal region. You can see it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So it is irregular, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
It is irregular. And there is some metaphyseal sclerotic changes are there. And the other side also it is there. Coming to the ankle joint, see, there is a deformity in the ankle also. There is, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
There is a deformity, varus deformity is there, and there is metaphyseal cup, just a cupping like both sides. Sclerosis is there. So the changes are more likely? Is it a physiological tibia vara or something?
So it is a could be a pathological, sir.
Pathological probably, sir.
What pathology?
When infantile tibia vera.
Infantile tibia vara, that changes is only in the tibia, not in the femur.
Yes.
And infantile tibia vara, there will be a beaking.
Beaking.
And there is a Fairbank epiphysis, more common in Negroes. Yes.
It could be rickets. Vitamin.
Yes, rickets. So these are all changes of rickets. Then somebody asked for the wrist. This is the X-ray wrist. How many carpal bones ossified?
Only 3 or so.
3. Okay, the child is 18 months, 2 plus 1, 3. It is correct. Any metaphyseal changes there? You can see the distal ulna. There is cupping is there, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the pelvis, what all things you will see? See whether there is any coxa vara. Coxa vara. What is the normal neck shaft angle? Normal neck shaft angle. Yes. എനിക്ക് പണ്ടേ ഒരു ദുഷ്പേരുണ്ട്, സാറ് ബേസിക് തന്നെ ചോദിക്കുന്നു. പക്ഷെ പലപ്പോഴും ബേസിക് ആർക്കും അറിയത്തില്ല. അതാണ് എനിക്ക് പണ്ടേ ഉള്ളൊരു ദുഷ്പേരാണ്, ബേസിക്കിന്റെ ആശാനാണ്. യെസ്. സോ മോസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ദ ടൈം ഐ 130 യെസ്
130 to 135 degrees.
130 to 135. Is it in a newborn? It is more or less. Yes,
it is less.
More.
Sir. And,
yes, definitely.
I mean, no, yeah.
It is usually it is up to 160 degree in a newborn, and by 10 or 12 years it may be coming. So the range is 120 to 140 degree. That is the normal range. So below 120 we call it a coxa vara, and below 140 or above 140 we call it a coxa valga. And now this appears almost normal, though not that much change we cannot appreciate. And distal femur there are changes. Proximal femur there is not much changes. Can anybody explain why? Can anybody? Why? So it is a generalized disease. Distal femur the changes are more, but proximal femur not that much pronounced change is there. Can anybody explain what is the reason? Yes. Chandrababu sir is in or not?
He's on a call, sir. He'll be in.
Just I am saying, because our Cherian sir, ഞങ്ങളുടെ ടീച്ചറാണ്. You always say rickets is a disease of growth. Rickets is a disease of growth. So if the child is not growing, if the child is not growing because of the malnutrition, the deformity will not be there. Yes. So if the child is more severely malnourished, the skeleton is not growing and no deformity will develop. Like that, with the longitudinal growth of the femur, only 30% is taken from the proximal femur and 70% is from the distal femur. So the distal femur is growing more. That is why we are getting more changes in the distal femur. That is the thing is that rickets is a disease of growth. That is why. So after seeing this radiology, you are narrowing down your diagnosis. You are going to which diagnosis? Okay, I will show you the biochemistry. This is the biochemistry. Are you able to read? So serum calcium normal, phosphorus normal, alkaline phosphatase elevated, and urea creatinine was normal, and there is a gross decrease in the vitamin D level. So that was the finding. Vitamin D, there is a gross decrease. So these are the findings. So all these findings points towards rickets. Then phosphorus is normal. So it is not a hypophosphatemic ricket. There is no, because in that case the phosphate level will be very low. And these are all very tricky things in the advancement. There are type of renal rickets, vitamin D dependent rickets, resistant rickets. There are many terms are there. Sorry. So there are two types of rickets are there. A calcipenic rickets, there is a low serum calcium, inadequate absorption, inadequate intake, and a faulty vitamin D metabolism. Then phosphopenic, that is because of the renal problem, low serum phosphorus, and there is a renal phosphate wasting is occurring. There are two types are there. So this is a very important slide actually. So from this we have to find out. So our findings are serum calcium is 9.5 milligram per dl, phosphorus is 4.4 normal, and there is a 737. So that is almost 3 times increased, almost 3 times alkaline phosphatase, and vitamin D 9.4 nanogram, that is 30 to 100 is the normal. So that is again very low. So this is the result that we have got from the child. And urea, this is not done actually, PTH is not done. So this is the result. So of the types of rickets, nutritional rickets, vitamin D resistant, that is hypophosphatasia, renal tubular acidosis, Fanconi syndrome, these are the results. And vitamin D dependent, that is type 1, vitamin D dependent type 1, that is inability to hydroxylate. So hydroxylation does not occur. So that is the findings are there. And vitamin dependent type 2, there is receptor insensitivity. Even if there is active vitamin D is produced, the receptors are not sensitive. So that is highly resistant type of vitamin D. So in that case, the thickness of the arrow shows that there is a gross increase in the active form of vitamin D. So our findings tally with the nutritional type of rickets. Serum calcium is normal, phosphorus is normal or low, and alkaline phosphatase is elevated. PTH we have not done, and the active form of vitamin D is decreased. So these are the with these results actually we can tally with the nutritional rickets. But there may be some nutritional rickets in our locality or in our country may be rare, because vitamin D sunlight is there, and here there is this child was from a well-known family with a financially good family. So, but there may be some GAT problem that can reduce the absorption of calcium and vitamin D. So, in this case, I have to tell you these postgraduates that you must know calcium metabolism, vitamin D metabolism. And renal rickets is a very favorite question for the postgraduates. Almost always something related to rickets. And if it is a nutritional rickets, what are the other findings you have to examine in that child? If you go back, so you think that after the investigations, what other physical findings you will see in that child?
The bossing of the
frontal bossing.
Forehead,
yes,
yeah, frontal bossing.
Yes.
So the ribs, sir, whether any
what is it called?
Brachytic rosary, sir.
Brachytic rosary, yes, then.
And the diaphragm also, Harrison sulcus.
Harrison, because of during contraction of the diaphragm, you will get a Harrison sulcus. Then, what is pseudo paralysis of rickets? Pseudo paralysis of rickets.
The pain in the joint and child will not move the limb.
Oh, no. Anybody? Pseudo paralysis of rickets. See, when there is vitamin D ricket, there is serum calcium level will be decreased, and that will decrease the muscle tone. So the child may not be able to stand up from the sitting position. Bovert side may be positive. So that is because of the hypotonia of the muscle. That is pseudoparalysis of rickets. And that itself is rachitic pot belly. Rachitic pot belly. Because of the abdominal muscle tone is decreased, they will be having a pot belly. So these are the other physical findings you may be seeing in rickets. When this such case comes, the discussion going on that way. That's all. Okay. So so you have to know about vitamin D metabolism, calcium, phosphorus metabolism, and different types of rickets. Usually, renal rickets or vitamin D resistant rickets will be asked. So they may be asking, describe vitamin D metabolism and renal rickets like that. So renal rickets is not that a simple topic. It is little difficult to understand, and maybe different books giving different types of description and maybe confusing. So you go and study well with these things. So for this child, how will you manage? What will be the management if it is a nutritional ricket? Anyway, vitamin D is very low, so you have to supplement with vitamin D. So the medical treatment is there. So what orthopedic management you will give? Along with the supplementation of vitamin D, even in type 1 other also we are giving high dose of vitamin D, IQ4. So what other orthopedic management you will do?
Knee ankle foot orthosis.
So what is that usually known as? That splint has got a name.
UCB.
Mermaid splint. Have you heard of mermaid splint? So nowadays the classical mermaid splints are not used because the child acceptance may not be there. Anyway, you are giving a splint to correct the deformity. So this will be corrected because on supplementation of the vitamin D and no surgical intervention required in this age group. Suppose it is presenting on a little more older age group, that is as the child is maturing, skeletal maturity. At that time, these patients may require corrective some osteotomy, either distal femur. At that site of deformity, you may have to go for osteotomy. So when you are doing planning for a surgery, any precautions you have to take? Anything? Anybody? Anybody saying something? I am not audible.
Yes, Dr. Ankit.
Serum alkaline level should be normal.
Alkaline level.
Alkaline phosphatase level.
Ideally, you have to stop the vitamin D therapy for at least for 3 weeks. Otherwise, what will happen? After surgery, we are going to immobilize the child. So that will produce increase in the immobilization. Serum calcium level will be increased. Immobilization will mobilize the calcium from the skeleton to the serum. So there will be toxicity developed because of the hypercalcemia. So that is, you may have to stop, not all types of rickets, but some types of rickets it is required. It is better to stop serum calcium at least for 3 weeks before surgery. Otherwise, dangerous hypercalcemia and toxic symptoms may develop. Now we are going to the second case. Before that, I want to get something from Balu or others. Shall we go like this? If you are going like this, it will take time, or we will cover more cases. Audience.
Yeah, PG sir. What do you think? I think, sir, what you're discussing is all very, very important points, and each component of this discussion may be asked as a separate OSCE.
Yes.
So, what do you feel, PG sir? Should we go fast, or shall we go like this?
Nobody is answering. So I think just showing some cases is not enough. You must know all these things. When a case is taken, actually this is a short case discussion.
Yes.
So if such a short case comes, these are all the things that will be asked by the examiner. Okay.
Yes.
So we will go to the second case. This case actually is a very rare case. Yeah, because of the rarity only I put this case. So presented with multiple swellings around neck, body, trunk, around trunk. So this is the clinical picture. A child presenting with 5 or 8 or 10 years old child presenting with multiple swellings there. Yes, this is another view as a male. Yeah. So somebody say the positive findings.
If somebody can just see, describe the
any abnormality. The child is standing with the knee flat, the other limb is kept abducted. And what is the abnormality there in that foot?
Yes, Naomi, can you just describe? Somebody's.
Hallux valgus deformity.
Okay.
Hallux
valgus
deformity, both sides. Anything else?
shortening of the grade 2 bilaterals.
That is the most striking feature. So the big toe is very short when compared. Can anybody now say the diagnosis? This can be a spotter like. So even though it is very rare, I put it because if you have never seen such a case, when you are going to see these cases, it may create some, once in a while if you see, there is a chance that you can mismanage the case. So this, during my post-graduation, I think Chandrababu sir may be remembering. He was also there, he was my senior there. Such a case came, a bony swelling around the shoulder girdle, and a biopsy was taken, and the report came as osteosarcoma. After the biopsy, the disease flared up. So we thought they are rapidly growing, so flared up. I was seeing for the first time such a case. And in my entire career, I have seen only 3 cases. Only 3 cases. This case is from Kottayam. I think 2016 or something like that. Anybody?
Sir, SOP?
Yes. SOP means?
Fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva.
Yeah, it is fibrodysplasia. So at your level, I think in new generation, the short form, they are very much like, actually when you are saying for the first time at least, you say the full diagnosis, okay? Now I'm seeing, even though it is the one OP ticket in the casualty was written, it is written advice. Everything was wrong. Along with that, rise advice. One instruction, rise advice on the OP ticket. You may be knowing everybody, they are all SMS language. What is rise? Rise advice.
Rest.
So you cannot write it on an order sheet, isn't it? Like that. It is better you avoid. Or at least when you are writing it down, first you say the full form, then you go to the short form only. So this is a case of myositis ossificans progressiva. So this is the X-ray. I lost all the other X-rays. This X-ray also I did the X-ray you can see there are bridging bonds. So all these muscles are ossified. So this ossification will be precipitated by any trauma. So including a biopsy. So that will flare up the condition. And the clue is on the big toe. There will be a monophalangic big toe with a valgus deformity. So there is only one phalanx for the big toe. That is the clue. So if a child is presenting like this with a short or a monophalangic big toe, the diagnosis is there. You should never attempt a biopsy. That will definitely flare up the condition. And some muscles will be spared, especially the trunk muscles. So fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva. So I have not written the short form. See? Yes, it is an autosomal dominant inheritance. So there will be progressive heterotrophic ossification of tendons, muscles, ligaments, and fascia, and is precipitated by a soft tissue injury. And within first 10 years, the child will present. And in the active stage, there will be an elevation of serum alkaline phosphatase. So different stages are there. You can go and refer. I am not going into details. It will take time. And the clue for the diagnosis is deformed great toe. It's a monophalangeal big toe. And ossification spans normal joints, jaw and neck, hip, shoulder. But usually muscles of facial expression, laryngeal muscles, diaphragm, etc. will be spared. So that will not be there. And it is when once you get the diagnosis and then it is better to avoid, because what happened was in the active form when you are doing a biopsy, it will look like a malignancy because increase the mitosis and all these things in the active form. So the report will come as osteosarcoma. So it is, so that is why the importance of just knowing such a condition is there. So pattern of ossification, all these things I already said, and usually there will be premature death due to respiratory failure, restrictive airway, because the trunk muscles were all ossified and now chest expansion will be there, only the diaphragm finally. So there will be a restrictive airway disease and produces death of the child. And just for the completion's sake, actually there is no treatment for it. Etiotronate, but that will inhibit the normal calcification of bones and severe osteoporosis and pathological fractures all will develop. Steroids just like an anti-inflammatory action. And gene therapy, BMP, I think 4 or 5, that is the significantly cause for the increased production. So BMP antagonists may be given. Surgical excision, you never attempt, that will worsen the condition. And only then the airway management. So we are going to the case 3. So if you have got any doubts, you can ask any clarification. If I am saying anything wrong also, you can correct me. So I have taken a postgraduate class, I think only 1.5 to 2 years back only. Now I am not taking postgraduate classes. So if anything, any correction you can say.
Namaja, I'm here.
Suresh, welcome.
I just ended, I remember I am our PG days.
So we are discussing a case. Actually, I have shown first time.
Myositis ossificans progressiva. That was the way that we were used to name that.
Okay.
And this case, this same case, this same situation was there in a PG exam in Manipal. Okay. I have the photograph of that patient. So you can get such cases for your PG exam because it is a spot diagnosis, and if you make the diagnosis, everything is clear for you. There is not only discussion on that.
So that is why if they have seen only once, then they'll be. So that is why I took this case. Sometimes this can come. Yeah, exactly. And on the exam day, these patients comes on there, then definitely they will keep there because of the rarity.
Yeah, because unless you see it once, you will not remember.
Now I have shown the clinical picture. I think they will not miss it.
Yeah, sure.
Those who attended the class. Okay, sir, may I go to the third case?
Please go. Please more. Right.
So somebody, child came with a deformity wrist, right wrist. Can somebody say the finding? Physical finding, right wrist. I'm sure that maybe difficult with these pictures there, but when compared to this wrist, it is deformed, definitely, isn't it? Actually, it is just like it appears to be a dinner fork like that on the wrist, and the ulnar head is when here it is seen, here it is less prominent. Here you can again see the curve here, that is there a dorsal displacement of the wrist when compared to this. Here the prominence is there. So that is, so any clue, any diagnosis? Or any possibilities? You can say DDs.
Madelung deformity.
Very good. Madelung deformity. So that is a physical finding. Madelung deformity. Yes. Sorry, it is a diagnosis, not a Manus valgus. It is a diagnosis. Madelung deformity. So what will you do? What will you do? How will you evaluate? You will go for an X-ray definitely. So this is the X-ray. Who said Madelung? Just read the X-ray.
Yes, Mohammed Sani. Or Akhil want to volunteer?
See, this is just a class. There is definite finding is there. It's not an exam. You just read.
You can see the right.
What is happening there?
Akhil. Yeah.
There is a lateral bowing of distal radius. Radial bowing of distal radius with the loss of development in the ulnar side.
Lateral view is not there, only AP view is there. So ulnar side. So this is a classic appearance of a Madelung deformity. So the medial one-third or medial corner of the distal radial epiphysis is not ossified properly. And in a traumatic condition also sometimes you can get, but this is a developmental problem or a dyschondroplasia, that is. And the diagnosis mainly clinical and radiological. So how will you manage such a case? What will you do for the child? Sometimes maybe presenting with the pain wrist.
Actually, we can give rest and analgesic and immobilization of wrist immobilization.
How will it help?
So pain relief.
If the pain is there, immobilization, but the child want to use immediately after removing the immobilization, the child will be having again pain.
So there will be abnormal connection between the radius and the carpal bone ligaments. Because
yeah.
Ligament.
So if the child is asymptomatic, you can leave alone, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So here, usually the description of a Madelung deformity is a prominent ulnar head, polar subluxation of the wrist, bowing of the radius, restricted wrist and forearm movements, and sometimes it may be an association, Leriville dyschondrosteosis, that is a dwarfism. So that is, there may be sometimes an association with this. But all other findings, prominent ulnar head, here the ulnar head is less prominent. Polar subluxation of the wrist, here it is a dorsal subluxation of the wrist. Bowing of the radius is there, lateral bowing is there, and restricted wrist and forearm movements may be there because the patient is not here. So that will be the normal physical finding. I am just put this picture is from the net and this is our picture. You can see this is a Madelung wrist. The ulnar head is prominent, polar subluxation. Here it is, the ulnar head is less prominent and there is a dorsal subluxation. Can anybody say? Is it a Madelung or something else?
Is Dr. Dheeraj?
Okay, I'm not wasting the time. So there is a condition known as reverse Madelung. So this is actually, may not be that. So the X-ray is typical of Madelung. Actually, there is no lateral view. So the abnormal epiphysis is volar. Here, the reverse Madelung, it will be dorsal. Dorsal dislocation of ulna in a Madelung. The previous picture you just see, ulnar head. Here, volar dislocation. That is why it is less prominent. And volar displacement of the hand, here, it is just like a dinner fork. That is dorsal displacement of the hand. So there will be a dorsal angulation, dorsolateral. Here may be vololateral angulation of the radius. So these are the difference. So when such a case comes and there is the ulnar head is less prominent, so you think of there is a condition reverse Madelung. So the abnormal epiphysis is dorsal in reverse Madelung. So it may be rare, but when such a Madelung comes, when the ulnar head is less prominent, then you must keep in mind such a condition is also there. I hope you may be hearing for the first time reverse Madelung, isn't it? And such a case also, isn't it? Everybody is sleeping. You make it alive and active. Participate in the discussion. At least say yes or no.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First time.
So somebody said an abnormal ligament, and that ligament is known as Wickard's ligament. So thick fibrous structure extends from ulnovolar metaphyseal region in classical Madelung. This is the ligament. See, in the MRI, this is the ligament we are seeing. And that attaches to the lunate and TFCC. Yes, TFCC an accepted short form. So, triangular fibrotic cartilage. Okay, so this is that ligament is known as Wickard's ligament. So sometimes that may be having some bearing on the management. So asymptomatic we can leave alone. So the management, and there are many different surgeries in the distal ulna depending on the age of the patient and other conditions, and depending on the radial bowing and all these things. We can do an earlier days maybe Darac's resection itself may be done, or nowadays Kapanji procedure. And to correct the angulation, we can go for a distal radial osteotomy. And in a little more advanced epiphyseal lysis, either a silastic or fat interposition in the epiphysis to prevent the growth abnormality. And the Wickard's ligament release and dome osteotomy. So this is a picture from again net. Very rarely done surgery. So we can see the Wickard's ligament diagrammatic representation and the dome osteotomy and tilting this to correct the deformity. So this is the management that is done. Yes, Potter, what is your diagnosis?
Congenital vertical talus.
Congenital vertical talus. So any other synonyms for it? Any other name?
Rigid pes.
Rigid pes planus. Yes. So this is a congenital vertical talus. What will be the clinical findings when the child is coming there? If you are examining the foot, what are the physical findings?
The talus will be prominent on the plantar side.
Plantar medial, yes, yes. Then plantar on the medial side.
The hind foot, valgus of the hind foot. Valgus of the hind. Valgus of the hind foot.
The calcaneus will be in an equinus position. Yes.
The dorsiflexion of the forefoot.
It may be remaining in a dorsiflexion contracted position. Plantar flexion is absent. The anterior structures may be contracted. Yes. Then the navicular. The navicular may be resting on the dorsum of the talus, and it may be abutting actually on the tibia on palpation. So this may be the physical findings that you may be getting. So it is classically known as rocker bottom foot because the foot is convex, the sole is convex. That is, it is known as a rocker bottom foot. And sometimes it is congenital rigid flat foot or congenital convex pes planus. Actually, it is not pes, actually it is convex. It is not flat. In the opposite, pes comes pes planus. And rounded province, somebody said medial and plantar surface of the foot. Sole is convex, foot is everted, and deep creases on the dorsolateral aspect of the foot. And plantar flexion will be restricted. Navicular may be seen abutting on the anterior part of the distal tibia. This I have included because corona case suppose a live patient is in front of you. These are the things you have to look for, and you have to write it in your case sheet also. So if the patient is there, these are the physical findings specifically you have to look for, and you have to write it in your case sheet. These are the clinical findings you have to look for. That is why I included this slide. And sometimes this may be associated with the very difficult situations, arthrogryposis, meningocele, myogenigo, because of the neuromuscular asymmetrical paralysis. You can sometimes get such a deformity. So with the management and all these things, prognosis are entirely different when such a case comes. So the differential diagnosis, sometimes we may be a valgus foot. We may sometimes, it's a benign condition that will correct spontaneously. We may suspect like a vertical talus and a flexible flat foot. Always the children will be flat-feeted, and the arch will be developing only after the child starts walking, and the arch will be developing by 5 to 6 weeks, 5 to 6 years of age. So you can test a simple plantar flexion test whether the arch is reappearing or not. So the radiographic findings. So this is a clinical picture, and you can see that the axis of the talus almost in the line of the tibia, so it's completely vertical. And another line that we draw is line on through the first metatarsal that may be going dorsally to all tarsal bones, especially cuboid and cuneiform. Usually that may cut the cuboid or cuneiform, so that is going dorsally. So these are the radiological findings you have to take. And this is, I think, our picture, and this is from the net. Only for comparison I have taken this. Our picture is not that good. So the management, it's a very difficult situation, and depending on the presentation, age of presentation, and the severity of the deformity, the prognosis will be guarded. Usually it will be conservative treatment usually fails, but in the early phase you can do some stretching and casting in order to release the anterior structures, and you can pull down the calcaneum to stretch that endoachilles also, and can put some cast, but surgical correction is definitely repaired as early as possible. And you can do it either by a single incision or multiple incision. All contracted tissues, including endoachilles, ossicapsules, all will be released. And sometimes anterior structure lengthening also may be sometimes tibialis anterior, and other tendons tenotomy or lengthening depending on the may be repaired. So difficult situation, and only a guarded result here. And sometimes you can go for an extra-articular subtalar arthrosis after reducing, placing back the talus in position, and you can put a gray screen arthrodesis, extra-articular arthrodesis. If the child presents more than 6 to 8 years, sometimes you may have to go for a triple arthrodesis. No release surgeries or realignment surgeries may not help. And vertical teres is also both in the theory part as well as for the practical is important for you, because such cases frequently comes and postgraduates may, the case may be kept. Theory, then you must know everything about vertical teres and all other things. Balu, this case was discussed earlier, isn't it? Somebody in the pediatric session.
Yes, sir. Cherry sir.
Anyway, somebody say the diagnosis. Our class will attend the diagnosis.
Akhil, you want to volunteer?
Congenital pseudoarthrosis of tibia.
Congenital
pseudoarthrosis of tibia.
Congenital pseudoarthrosis tibia. What is the angulation?
Oh, it's the other.
Here, where is so? First, you see and describe what is there. Where is the angulation?
And this is to the lateral side.
Only one picture, I agree. Anyway, the posterior angulation is very evident, isn't it? Either is a congenital posterior or posteromedial angulation. Yes. The other one is anterior or anterolateral, just opposite. So that is what. Don't jump into conclusions.
Yes.
Yes. How will you manage? What will be the etiology? The benign condition. Yes, it is usually intrauterine malpositions, that may be. So how will you manage somebody? Nobody is answering.
Zakaria, Regil, Dr. Zakaria, can you volunteer?
Can be managed conservatively. Because it has a good prognosis, sir.
So you think that the deformity will correct spontaneously?
Deformity will correct, but shortening may be there.
Shortening will be persist.
Yes. So these are the serial X-rays. The first X-ray, after follow-up X-rays. This is the final X-ray. The deformity is almost fully. This is one my patient. The deformity is fully corrected, but there was a shortening. This I think after 4 years or something like that. The child 4 or 5 years. This is the X-ray. So I got given a shoe raise, more than 5-inch shortening, and if the shortening is more than 5 centimeters, if it is less than 5 centimeters, you can adjust. If the shortening is more than 5 centimeters, what surgical option you suggest?
Guided growth.
Guided growth. Guided growth means?
The opposite side.
If the opposite side is not that great, you can go for a opposite side epiphysiodesis. Either temporary or permanent, depending on the age of the child. But sometimes you may have it because there is a gross shortening. Then if you are doing epiphysiodesis, the level of the knees and the patient may be short-statured. So you can do a lengthening procedure on the same side also if the shortening is severe. Okay. Another case, again a shortening. A boy presented with more than 2-inch shortening of left lower lip. So they notice, the parents notice as the child starts walking. There is no significant contributory history, only this is the history. Yes.
Devraj, you want to volunteer? Shinas Salam.
Sir, is that proximal femoral deficiency?
Proximal femoral focal deficiency, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why you say that?
Femur is shortened.
It's a gross shortening of the femur is there. More than 2-inch shortening is there. So there is a possibility. So again, this is the lateral view from the side. So this is the X-ray. Somebody read the X-ray? So proximal femoral focal deficiency. So what is the classification? Anybody whose classification? Aitken classification. So we cannot fully say this is not, but here what we are seeing is a severe coxa vara. So what is your diagnosis? So what are the abnormalities seeing here? So there is a severe coxa vara, there is a bowing of proximal tibia, isn't it? So these are the things. Because of the coxa vara, the trochanter will be evidently there. So what will be the physical disabilities for the patient?
Abduction will be limited.
There will be a abduction and
rotation.
So we call it differential
rotation.
Not rotation, differential limitation of movement. So one plane movement or two plane movements will be, the flexion extension will be normal, but abduction and internal rotation will be restricted. So one plane, so there will be, that is a general feature of coxa vara, that's all. So here that is the thing. So how will you do for this child? Maybe 6 or 7 years old. If it is a congenital coxa vara, what will you do?
Derotation osteotomy.
Yes?
Derotation of osteotomy.
Derotation. Why you want to derotate? How will you correct the neck shaft angle? How will you correct the neck shaft angle?
Varus.
Abduction osteotomy, isn't it?
With epiphysiodesis, trochanteric epiphysiodesis.
Then only that will be corrected. So you can do a subtrochanteric or intertrochanteric osteotomy to correct the varus leaf, coxa vara, and in order to prevent the overgrowth, we can even do a trochanteric epiphysiodesis also. If the trochanteric epiphysis is open, it can produce again leaking, and that may cause abductor insufficiency, lumbar gait, and all these things. So there are two types of congenital coxa vara are there. So there may be, one is present at birth, and type 2 is the more common type, and that will not be present with no other abnormality. Here this may be present by bilateral proximal femoral focal deficiency may be there, cleidocranial dysostosis may be there, associated one. So our case appears to be a type 2 one. So there will be a painless limb, short limb. There will be short limb as well as Trendelenburg element will be there. If the limb grows short, it will be appears to be a short limb gait. And in bilateral cases, there will be widening, not telescoping. The radiographic findings already we have said, decreased neck shaft angle and widened proximal physis, the even vertical alignment of the growth plate. So one important angle that is we are drawn that is Helgin renal epiphyseal angle. Helgin renal epiphyseal angle. So this is the Helgin renal slide and this is the epiphyseal line. So you take this angle. So usually that angle will be increased when there is a coxa vara. Depending on the severity of the vara, that angle is decreased. Other coxa neck shaft angle you can take, head shaft angle you can take, or different angles are there. But the management mainly, this is a picture from the neck. So Helgin renal line, that is the one usually we take. So if the Helgin renal epiphyseal angle is less than 45, we can strictly follow the child. If it is between 45 and 60, we can either follow or do surgery on either way. And if it is above 60 degree, definitely you go for a surgical correction, either a subtrochanteric or intertrochanteric osteotomy. It is better to do the surgery before 8 years. So for that case, what we have done is this. Maybe a very old case. So we have done just a subtrochanteric osteotomy and corrected the angle still, even though because they're very gross. So we may have to do it in a second stage. Sometimes we may have to, and you feel that this screws is in the space. No, there is cartilage is there, the trochanter is there because the child is very young. So such as procedure is done and the parents and child is satisfied. So no further follow because they have that almost shortening, almost only very little shortening remaining. So I told them that to follow, came for a second surgery, but I don't know what happened. Next case. So a 13-year-old girl, pain and swelling distal femur 1 month. Balu,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think it is
John,
1 hour. Shall we proceed?
I think, sir, we can finish off this case, sir, and we will have one more session, sir. It's really interesting. We'll have one more session with you to complete it off.
So this 13-year-old girl presenting with the pain and swelling distal femur 1 month duration, and she is having actually no functional symptoms, and blood investigations within normal limit except a mild derivation of serum alkaline phosphatase, and this is the X-ray. So the clinical photograph is not there because even if it is there, not much finding there. Somebody go for the DD.
Yes, Naomi?
Sir, osteomyelitis.
Very good. Why you say it is osteomyelitis?
Because you can see the periosteal reaction.
Periosteal reaction, yes.
And then there is
reaction inside the medullary cavity.
Yes.
So what type of periosteal reaction you are seeing? There are different types of periosteal reaction.
Lamellated type. Lamellated type.
Very good. Lamellar type of periosteal reaction is there. So osteomyelitis. When you DD, you will keep in mind.
Ewing sarcoma.
Ewing sarcoma. Very good. Anything else? Because you see the age, 5 to 15 age group is there. It is an Ewing sarcoma. You can think of anything else.
Osteosarcoma.
More towards the metaphysis.
Osteosarcoma.
Osteosarcoma. So definitely you have to keep all these things in your mind. So always common things are common. I am very happy to say somebody said osteomyelitis first, but I have written here blood investigations within normal limit. If it is osteomyelitis, ESR and CRP will be elevated, and only a mild derivation. All these things can happen. Even then, I may also keep my first diagnosis as osteomyelitis, because nowadays we are not getting a virgin case. Only some treated case with antibiotic and all these things we will be getting. So the investigation findings may be altered. So common things are common. Always think of common things. And osteomyelitis, osteosarcoma, Ewing sarcoma. These are the 3 possibilities you have to keep in mind. And this is further lateral view and MRI picture. Yes. There is extension into the diaphysis, and the lesion may be extending just close to the metaphysis. So we have the MRI thigh and CT chest. So it was actually an osteosarcoma. The biopsy proved it as an osteosarcoma. And there is a lesion extends 21.5 centimeter proximally from the distal articular margin. So that is the proximal extension in the initial MRI. And the CT chest showed a solitary lung secondary. So definitely we have done the biopsy also. Now how will you proceed? So the diagnosis is osteosarcoma. 13-year-old girl. So what are the lines, or what will you do? Suppose such a case comes to you. Anybody? How will you proceed? Any further investigation you will do?
Yes, sir. I'll go for first of all, I'll go for a chest X-ray and then a CT scan.
X-ray already CT lung is there, and there is a lung secondary. Yes.
And if viable, a PET scan, sir.
Or a technetium bone scan to see any skipped lesions anywhere in the skeleton, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Then suppose this is the situation: no skip lesion, lung secondary, biopsy is proved as distal femur osteosarcoma. What will you do? What will you do for her?
So treatment, if I'm going, I'll start with neoadjuvant chemotherapy, sir.
Neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Yes. Why you give neoadjuvant chemotherapy? Why not you are going for a surgery directly? What are the advantages of neoadjuvant chemotherapy?
It just shrinks the tumor.
Yes, tumor size will be decreased. Then
vascular.
Decrease the vascularity. Yes.
Make it more consolidated.
That's okay. Shrinks the tumor. Yes. The same thing. Anybody? What are the other advantages of a neoadjuvant chemotherapy?
extent of resection can be minimized so that the functional outcome could be improved.
No. So the resection, if you are doing a resection, it must be depending on the initial MRI finding. So we will do a repeat MRI after neoadjuvant chemotherapy to see whether how much it is shrink, is there any decrease in extension. But if you are going for a resection and a reconstruction, the resection must be based on the first MRI. That is 21.5 centimeter approximately from the articular margin. So two other advantages for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy. One is this will knock down the micrometastasis. Scan or technetium bone scan that will be knocked down, or micrometastasis in the lung will be knocked out. That is another. Second is the response of the chemotherapeutic agent to the tumor tissue. Yes, after doing the resection and we are sending it for biopsy. So then the tumor necrosis, there are some calculations are there, but the amount of tumor necrosis by the neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So whether that chemotherapeutic agent is responding to this particular tumor, so that in the post-operative chemotherapy, after the surgery, we are again continuing on the chemotherapy, what drug to be given. So that is again will be evaluated. So these are the three things, the advantages of a neoadjuvant chemotherapy. So that it shrinks the tumor. Second, the response, tumor response to the chemotherapeutic agent. Third is this will knock down micrometastasis in the skeleton or lung anywhere in the body. So this is how that is advantage. So, so what will you do for this girl, 13-year-old girl? Will you go for a disarticulation hip? What will you suggest?
Limb salvage and reconstruction.
What?
Limb salvage surgery.
What are the limb salvage surgeries you know?
With endoprosthetic reconstruction.
Resection and megaprosthesis, then?
Arthrodesis, resection and
arthrodesis.
Then autograft, osteoarticular.
Cadaveric bone. Yes. Allograft replacement.
Rotation.
Here now, I think we don't get it.
Rotation plasty.
What name?
Rotation plasty.
What is it associated with somebody's name? German.
Vanus.
Vanus rotation plasty. So neoadjuvant chemotherapy, you have given 3 cycles. Repeat MRI, the tumor size regressed, and repeat CT test, the secondary disappeared. So the ablation of the primary is very important, even if it is there. So amputation is the possibility. Vanus rotation plasty, resection arthrodesis, resection and a cadaveric allograft, resection and megaprosthesis. These are the options that is available. So if an osteosarcoma case comes, and also it can be osteosarcoma can be asked as a theory question, usually asked. Osteosarcoma, 13-year-old girl, distal femur, how will you evaluate and manage? Such a question sometimes you can come for the theory also. So our case, we have done even though the tumor disappeared after the initial neoadjuvant chemotherapy, the oncosurgeon advised resection. So pulmonary wedge resection done and a megaprosthesis. So she is only 13 years, and the resection length actually, how much resection you have to take approximately from the normal edge. It is a highly malignant tumor, you have to take 5 centimeters, and curettings from the cut end sent for cross section. So this is a record length resection. 13-year-old girl, 27 centimeters of the distal femur we are removing. So there are some problem with the reconstruction because the peg goes into the proximal femur. Usually it is, I think, 12 centimeters. So we are in doubt that whether you will get a 12 centimeter proximally. So a custom-made processes are also we want. So you have to take a curettings from the cut end and send it for cross section. And only after getting the result, we will be proceeding for further surgical resection or continuation of the surgery. So this is what we have done. See how we have resected, and these are all follow-up X-rays. The skeleton has grown, and now she usually calls me once in a year in the Christmas for wishing. And now she is, I think, 23. This is done in 2013. And even then, the same prosthesis. Actually, she was walking without any support. I am warning her to walk with the support only. Otherwise, this may get loosened. I think now she is a pharmacist or pharmacy student in Mangalore and working somewhere. So there is no recurrence. She is happy. Only thing is that one steel rod is here. and the Democles in the Vadu loose another when he was going for a revision, another there is a problem. So, shall we stop? I think everybody getting bored.
No, sir.
We stop. I think it is more than 1 hour, isn't it?
Yes, Shinas?
Is it enough for
we'll continue, sir.
just bombarding with the cases? I don't know if you are not attending and no use. You will stop it here, isn't it? Okay, now what is the time now?
Sir, 9:15, sir.
9:50, 100. So, okay, maybe.
Sir, they want one more case, sir.
One more case. Okay.
Yes, sir.
These are all, we can finish it completely. 2-year-old female child, reluctant to bear weight on lower limb, left lower limb. Mild fever for last 5 to 6 days. Diffuse swelling, distal third thigh. Local warmth present, tender distal femur. And polymorphonuclear leukocytosis. Raised DSR, raised CRP. So it's a very straightforward. Yes? What may be it? Again, I have said that we may not get a classical findings nowadays because already we are getting a treated case. So what is the possibility? So this is the first X-ray.
Yes, Naomi?
There is not much positive findings. So this is the second, now the second X-ray. Sorry, it is just tilted. Not that good X-ray also. We can see that here the soft tissues are edematous. The delineation between the fat muscle planes is not there. There is periostal reaction. Periostal reactions are there. Yes. And rarefaction in the metaphyseal region. X-ray is not that good quality. Yes, this is the X-ray finding. And now what do you think it is? 2 year, only 2 year. It is not an age for osteosarcoma, Ewing sarcoma. ESR is raised, CRP is raised. Polymorphonuclear leukocytosis. It's an osteomyelitis.
Acute osteomyelitis.
Acute osteomyelitis.
Acute or subacute is a altered presentations. Then osteomyelitis of the distal femur. So, what is the most common organism? Very basic question.
Staph aureus, sir.
You can say, see, it is a Staphylococcus aureus. Yes. Can anybody shortly say the pathophysiology or pathogenesis of acute osteomyelitis? Acute hematogenous osteomyelitis. Anyway, I am not going to just remember, you must know that pathogenesis of acute hematogenous osteomyelitis starting from how a bacteremia and how the bacteria gets into the circulation and what is the difference between bacteremia and toxemia and how this bacteria settles in the metaphysis, why there is a predilection for the metaphysis in acute osteomyelitis. So there are many pathophysiology, just like just saying a story, it will come acute and how it then it first formed in the metaphyseal region. Then what are the routes by which it can go? It can go into the medullary cavity. It can penetrate the pierce the thin metaphyseal cortex and the subperiosteal region. So it will circumferentially cover the cortical bone from the proximal epiphysis to distal epiphysis. So the bone, all the whole bone become avascular, and that is known as, that bone is known as
Sequestrum.
Not simple sequestrum.
Tubular.
Tubular sequestrum or diaphyseal sequestrum. And there will be subperiosteal newborn is formed, that is known as involucrum. And the pus passing through the holes of the involucrum is known as cloaca. So the follow-up X-rays are there. So a chronic osteomyelitis. So what is the most common complication? A chronic osteomyelitis. So a chronic osteomyelitis can be, you can get a chronic osteomyelitis as a case for you. So what are the physical findings you get in a chronic osteomyelitis? Thickening of the bone, irregularity of the bone, multiple discharging sinus, and in the history, if there is a bone piece coming through the sinus. So otosequestrectomy. So you are 100% sure that it is a chronic osteomyelitis. And what are the ways by which a bone can be infected? One is hematogenous spread as a complication of chronic osteomyelitis, following a compound fracture. And then iatrogeny, after doing surgery, you can. So when the chronic osteomyelitis comes, you ask all this history, whether in the past there is a hematologic history of hematogenous osteomyelitis, or if there is a history of surgery on the bone, or a past history of compound fracture, or any contiguous ulcer spread. So these are the possibilities by which, and history of sequestrum coming. So what are the complications of chronic osteomyelitis? Anybody? Complications of chronic osteomyelitis. Acute exacerbation. Yes. Then pathological fracture. Growth disturbances, either shortening or lengthening or angular deformities you can get. And any chronic infection, amyloidosis. So, and can anybody say what is the indication for doing amputation in chronic osteomyelitis? Indication for doing amputation in chronic osteomyelitis. Anybody? Any chronic ulcer can lead on to one malignancy. What is that malignancy? Squamous cell carcinoma. So, you have seen squamous cell carcinoma in chronic osteomyelitis. So sometimes, nowadays, because of this, wider resection and reconstruction may be there. Even then, sometimes presenting late may require amputation. So finally, this is the situation. It's almost healed. Even then, there is thickening of the bone. But always want that this can flare up at any time and can discharge as sinuses. So presented at actually the child presented at 1 year or 1.5 years like that. What is this? Very straightforward, clear-cut case. Just say what it is.
Yeah, John C.
I think we will stop here and
Cubitus valgus of
everybody is
cubitus rectus.
Yes.
Cubitus valgus of Western case
of cubitus valgus. Yes. Akhil, what are the causes of cubitus valgus? Akhil.
So, lateral condyle fracture.
Lateral condyle fracture will not get cubitus valgus. You have to say non-union lateral condyle or malunion lateral condyle.
Condyle fracture.
It's an undergraduate, it's a postgraduate. So if it is a well-united lateral condyle fracture, it will not get a valgus deformity. You have to say non-union or malunited lateral condyle fracture. Then any other cause for cubitus valgus? Is the radial head fracture produce a cubitus valgus? Yes. Radial head fractures, displaced radial head can, and premature resection. So if you are doing a resection of the radial head, you don't do a cubitus valgus deformity. Then Montegia fractures, unrated Montegia fractures. Again, you can get a valgus deformity. So these are all causes for valgus deformity. And the supracondylar fracture almost always cubitus valgus, but only very rarely you can get a. So what other examination will you do in this boy? What other physical examination will you do?
Relationships.
Examination of the ulnar nerve. So you have to see whether the ulnar nerve is involved. Renju Matthew, just name the ulnar nerve test, undergraduate. What are the tests you will do for the ulnar nerve? Renju Matthew T. Just name.
Yes, Naomi.
So we have to check for pen.
See, this is why I am asking basic questions. See, in the examination, if you are not answering all
we check for book test,
test,
pen test,
Tagawa test.
So there are some tests to know. Yes, what is the deformity?
Wartenberg sign.
What is the deformity you get?
Claw hands.
What is the name of the splint used in claw hand deformity?
Knuckle
bender splint. Very good. What do you mean by ulnar paradox?
In the high ulnar palsy, the deformity will be less due to the involvement of the.
Okay. You know the reason why it is. So those who are not knowing the reason, find out why higher the lesion, lesser the clawing. That is the paradox. So this case, what will you do? The ulnar nerve, there is no ulnar nerve syndrome. Only cosmetic problem. The X-ray is this. The very old one, frank non-union. What will you do? Somebody say something. So these are all very simple cases.
Corrective osteotomy, supracondylar.
Supracondylar region. Any other corrective osteotomy? Will you think of osteosynthesis? The union, you reduce the fragment back and fix it with some screws and for union.
So large fragment is there, so we can try for a
fragment is large. On the table, it will be much more larger because of the cartilage there. Yes. So you will think of an osteosynthesis. So what will happen? What are the complications in a late case if you are going for an osteosynthesis? What are the complications?
Still no name.
Either radial head. It is already deformed. And if you are dissecting and putting it back, you can sometimes get an avascular necrosis. So this may lead on to arthritis, painful arthritis. So very late case, it is better to correct the deformity by a osteotomy. So you can go for an osteosynthesis, medial closed-wood osteotomy, lateral open-wood osteotomy, displacement osteotomy. When such a gross deformity is there, when you are doing a closed-wood or open-wood osteotomy, there will be a much prominence, unacceptable prominence on the medial side. Cosmetically, again, it may not be that. So a displacement osteotomy is described. So you can displace the distal fragment laterally. Distal fragment, yes, medially. And laterally, and the deformity will be corrected. So this is again my case. I have done this geometrical reconstruction and it was very acceptable. So this is again a very old case. Other pictures are not with me. So these are the options. Will you do anterior transposition of the ulna now? In this case? Yes or no?
Yes.
Why?
Already
there is no ulnar palsy. It is not required actually. We are correcting the deformity. But if already there is an ulnar symptom, it is better you go for anterior transposition. So this is the last case. Somebody say the diagnosis.
Fondagia fracture dislocation.
What type of fondagia? Bado.
And second, third. Anterior. Type 2. Posterior 2, sir. Type 2.
Type 2. Where is the radial head?
What is the angulation? Posterior angulation and posterior dislocation radial.
This one. This forearm is in the AP view. Radial head is dislocated laterally.
Type 3.
And there is a lateral angulation of the ulna. Lateral fondagia. Isn't it? This is AP view, isn't it? Radial head is posterior. In the lateral, we are not seeing the radial head posterior.
Type 3, sir.
Type 3.
Type 3.
So what will you do? Suppose you are sitting in the casualty and such a case comes. What will you do? Yes, these are all very straightforward cases. Simple cases. Catch there is no catch.
Reduce and put a above elbow slab.
This one. You will be able to reduce?
We need.
So you think you will go for a conservative treatment? It's a closed injury, so you will go for a conservative treatment. Okay. Any other? If you go for a surgical treatment? Yes. There are two Achilles are there. Jens Wilson is he present there? Bhagiraj Subramanian. If you have an online class, you can see the photo post. Yes. So if there is no response from you, such a simple case, what is the purpose? It's a discussion, postgraduate discussion.
Open reduction and internal fixation with play.
Will you reduce the radial? Will you fix the radial head with a transarticular K-wire?
No, while fixing the ulna, the radial head will
automatically reduce, isn't it?
Yes.
But the ligaments only will be ruptured. Okay, so we will go for okay. Bhagiraj is there.
Yes, sir.
You see there, Bhagiraj Subramanian.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So when this patient comes, which nerve you specifically look for?
Posterior interosseous nerve. Posterior interosseous nerve.
How will you know whether it's a posterior interosseous nerve palsy? How will you clinically test?
Tell the patient to extend the fingers.
Extend the fingers. Which joint?
MCP.
Yes, that is why these are all very simple things, but you are answering wrong, giving me wrong answer. Interphalangeal joint extension is produced by which nerve? That is by ulnar nerve. Interphalangeal joint extension.
MCP joint extension.
MCP joint extension. So what we are getting is a finger drop. And Subramanian, where is the sensory loss? Posterior dorsal nerve palsy, where is the sensory loss?
It's a motor.
Pure
motor nerve.
Say purely motor nerve. You will not get a sensory. So these are the things, questions that may be asked if such a case is kept. Very simple things. So our doctors have done what is the procedure is an emergency done in the casualty. I'm sorry for the poor quality of the X-ray. And these are all old X-rays. The radial head is reduced and sufficient 3 screws proximally and 3 screws distally, and penetrating both cortices, and radial head remaining reduced. Run as an emergency closed. So this is a follow-up X-rays. What happened? Got infected. It was a closed injury, and the casualty unfortunately got infected. You can see that the radial head is dislocated, and further X-rays, it is remaining dislocated. Follow-up X-rays, again, see the whole segment has gone avascular. This piece completely avascular. There is a gap. So as a first stage, we have removed that segment. Such a gap in ulna is there. So this, because of severe infection, a young lady. So this was gone because of the infection. So this shows the importance of asepsis that is required in orthopedics. Otherwise, the results will be dangerous or horrible. Such a things will happen if the asepsis is not there with orthopedic surgery. So this is what will happen. And why this happened is because of the infection. So such a gap is there. Now it is a gap non-union ulna. Yes, Jins Wilson, what will you do? Infection control, we are debrided and antibiotic beads, necessary blood investigation and everything done. Infection is poison. What will you do? No answer?
Johnsy? Anupam?
Shinas Salam.
Yeah, Shinas?
Sir, fibular graft.
Yes.
Vascular
you are right. Why you are hesitating? This is just a class. And
vascularized fibular graft.
The infection, I will go for to maintain the length of the forearm.
Infection is poison. The area is fit for surgery. So you plan for a vascularized
maintain the length of the
graft.
forearm. I will go for fibular graft.
Vascularized fibular graft, isn't it? Yes. So ulna is a bone, notorious for non-union, subcutaneous bone. So you will go for a vascularized fibular graft. That is one option. So what I have done is actually debrided and a tricortical graft taken from the iliac crest. It is not vascularized. It is kept there. I was done. So in our busy medical college, plastic surgeons and all these things may not be available as frequently. So what we have done, and because it may having some confidence that it may unite. So that united well. So taken up and finally everything healed. We have done a radial head excision. Removed the radial head also. She was happy that by united there was no recurrence of infection also. So these are
so the previous case, can we do a mask? Can we attempt a masklet technique?
Next case. So we can, that is actually we do, can put a, after removing the sequestrum, we can put a antibiotic bond cement. Masklet technique can be done. So that can be done, and the biomembrane that is formed there after a few months. So that is again already she has undergone many surgeries. Now this is going to be 2-stage surgeries again. So in order to reduce the number of surgeries, So since you have said about this masculine technique, so this case, type 3 compound fracture, and came with such a bone loss. So the one possibility what you said is a masculine technique. What are the other possibilities? Again, bone grafting, cadaveric bone after initial stabilization either with an intramedullary plate and screw or external fixator masculine technique. So we have done. We can go through this article, Induced Membrane Technique, Fails and Pitfalls, Journal of Orthopedics and Trauma, October 2017, volume 31. So details are there. So you go and read about this. So this is the bone cement. So when you are doing this, make sure that the bone cement is actually encroaching into the both ends of the bone. And maximum amount of cement must be kept there, almost the shape. Then stage 1, the spacer. Then the final second stage, we have removed the bone cement by opening the biomembrane and putting corticocancellous. Ideally, cancellous graft is better because neovascularization is better in a cancellous bone, not in a cortical bone. So this was the cortical bone that was earlier present there. In the initial X-ray itself, there was a piece of bone there. See, that was that bone there. So we put a cancellous graft there. And that is done after 4 to 6, 2 months, nearly after 2 months. And we followed up, and the fracture is getting, this is 1 year X-ray after that, a second procedure, 1 year. So the graft is gradually getting consolidated. So this is masculine technique. So 10 case, this is the 11th case. So thank you for your kind attention. So my advice is that you have to actively participate in the discussion, maybe right or wrong. And now you have seen many cases. Go and today or in the recent days itself, these are all exam cases. So you go and read about the theory part. I have gone little elaborate. Even then you have to go and read about it. Moreover, I have in the first slide, I have given my mobile number and email ID. You can write your comments there or any doubts and any suggestions for improving this type of programs. Okay, so actually I am new with this online classes. Usually I am taking classes with the patient and students in front of me. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Balu.
Sir, but this was wonderful session, sir. It was all very, very important cases. And I think many questions can come from each of this. So I think everybody has learned a lot from the session, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, very good to have very experienced teachers like you in our session, sir.
Okay, thank you for inviting me for such a session, even though I am retired before 2 years ago. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody, for your attention. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.